guys, welcome back to the Laundry List. You got Todd, Soraya, Charles, and Blake here, and we are going to have a good episode. We have no idea what we're going to talk about. We were just talking before the podcast, like, what are we going to talk about? We're like, we have no idea, and I'm trying to write something down quickly, just have at least a topic or two, but it'll be interesting because it'll definitely be off the cuff. All right. Well, before we get too deep into the podcast with tears, smiles, and laughter, we're going to read the laundry list.
All right. So these are characteristics and traits that we have utilized in our adult life that have started in our childhood. And the first one is we became isolated and afraid of people and authority figures. 2, we became approval seekers and lost our identity in the process. 3, we are frightened by angry people and any personal criticism. 4, we either became alcoholics, married them or both, or find another compulsive personality such as a workaholic to fulfill our sick abandonment needs. Number 5, we live life from the viewpoint of victims and are attracted by that weakness in our love and friendship relationships. Number 6, we have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, and it is easier for us to be concerned with others rather than ourselves. And this enables us not to look too closely at our own faults. Number 7, we get guilt feelings when we stand up for ourselves instead of giving in to others. 8, we became addicted to excitement. Number 9, we confuse love and pity and tend to love people we can pity and ultimately rescue. 10, we have stuffed our feelings from our traumatic childhoods and lost the ability to feel or express our feelings because it hurts so much. And that's also known as denial. 11, we judge ourselves harshly and have a very low sense of self-esteem. Number 12, we are dependent personalities who are terrified of abandonment and will do anything to hold on to a relationship in order not to experience those painful abandonment feelings. And we receive those from living with sick people who were never there for us emotionally. 13, alcoholism is a family disease, and we became para-alcoholics and took on the characteristics of that disease, even if we never picked up a drink. And finally, 14, para-alcoholics are reactors rather than actors.
Yeah, that's solid. So when you were reading that, I just wrote down a couple things that came to my mind. And I was listening to a podcast on the way over here that my friend Mike sent me. And it's a podcast about 2 hours long that is a synopsis of Rene Girard's work. Rene Girard was a brilliant philosopher and thinker. And this guy does a 2-hour synopsis of it. And even the synopsis was very wordy and highly intellectual. So I had to pay attention to understand what he was talking about. But, you know, there's some spots in there that talk about just how humanity in general are followers. And he uses, Hitler as an example and how they made the Jews out to be the bad guys. Going back even before Christ, like just how it's so easy if you're in a position of power and authority to get people to do what you want them to do. And that's why the cancel culture, I think, is so strong today, because it's like people are scared to get canceled. Like, my kids are like, oh, Dad, you can't say that. You're going to get canceled. And it's like the threat of being in trouble and being canceled, or speaking out against the government, whether you're in China, Russia, or even in Nazi Germany. It's like it's hard to have your own voice. It's hard to have your own voice. And we take it down even to a microcosm of what we talk about here, which is our individual life and relationships. But, I just think it's so strong at a macro level, but even down to like our life and talking in relationships that we have. So, I'd like to just hear that as a topic for a minute, and then we can go on to some other things that you guys might have pop up. But just how strong of an influence, society has on us. We talk a lot about our parents having such an influence on us, and we become our parents in some form or fashion. And then how we try to find our true voice. One of the notes I took down is, how do you find your true self? because we have all these influences. We have the government telling us who we should be. We have our colleges telling us who we should be. We have the cancel culture telling us who we should be. And that's why I love people that speak up against like the cancel culture. Like I know Elon's getting a lot of shit right now.
Dave Portnoy as well.
Yeah, Dave Portnoy.
Cancel culture.
Dave Chappelle. Like, and it's like, fuck it. We're just going to say what we want to say, and whoever doesn't like it can go to hell.
Yeah.
And now they're becoming popular. So like the cancel culture is becoming popular.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to, the easiest way to find a leader in a room is who believes in their value set the most, right? I mean, that's apparent with Hitler and all these other people, and it's just the cancel culture. They all just are crazy about hating on other people, right? And they believe that so deep, and everyone else is like, oh, well, I don't really know. So, because they don't know their true self. Like I've been caught up in that. Like, I don't know who I am in party situations or teammates or whatever. And I just am like, because I don't know who I am and I don't believe in myself. So then when you don't know this is at least my experience, when you don't know who you are, it's a lot easier to follow and fall into those traps.
Yeah.
Where now today, I know who I am, and somebody says, hey, I'm like, I'm good. It's all good.
Well, and we all want to feel approved, liked, and feel valued, and almost like people looking up to us.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I'm with them.
Well, it's just like back in high school, I think I fell into that trap, and somebody told me, I think I was a sophomore or junior, and they're like, Blake, why are you so worried about this? Like, these kids don't matter. Like, you won't be friends with any of these people. Like, trust me. Like it doesn't matter. But then in the moment, it's like, I want these kids to love me. And
in the moment,
it's like,
there is no future.
But looking back 10, 15 years ago, they're right.
Yeah.
They're right.
I saw some guys at the Suns game a couple weeks ago that I went to high school with, and one of them I was friends with. The other three I wasn't friends with, and they were the drunk party popular crowd. And I just remember trying so hard to kiss their ass in high school, and I literally couldn't walk up 4 rows and even say hi to them at the Suns game. Like I could give a shit. It's just going to be small talk. I have nothing to say to them. But in high school, like I would have done backflips to like get their approval and hang out with them. And now, that I'm 55, it's like, I could give a shit. Like I have nothing to say to them. I don't want to get to know them, and it's amazing how it changes. But this, I'm going to send you guys this podcast because it's really interesting. And Jordan Peterson talks a lot about this on sort of a societal macro level, and you see like these protests in China, which I think is great. But at the end of the day, when they want to end this shit, they end it quickly.
Yeah,
right?
Brazil, Iran, there's a bunch of protests all over the world.
Yeah, they let it get going for a while. And then when they want to end it, they end it. And they end it abruptly. So at least we today have the freedom in the US to like say and do what we want, right? I mean, we might get canceled, we may, not, but it's like we can say what we want to say. And it feels good because, how to find our true self. Soraya, what have you been learning in the last few weeks and all the work you're doing and how to go find your true self with all the noise and bullshit out there?
I think, sorry. So I think that what I'm in the process of trying to learn is what it is that I want. And my therapist says that what I want in a relationship, I also have to be that as well. I can't expect something out of somebody if I am not also all of those things. And so I think in discovering what it is that you want out of somebody else, it's also a journey in finding yourself. And so I guess that's what I've been kind of working on, because you want somebody who's like an equal partner, I guess. So there's like 3 types of partners where you lean on each other equally, and you're both strong, independent people, or you also lean on each other equally and it's more of a toxic thing, or you're entirely holding up the other person and it's called like the hat something.
So you don't want to rescue. You're not looking for a rescue situation.
Yeah. No, because I have all of these traits that I want in my future partner. I want someone who's strong and smart, but not pretentious, and, loves cats, whatever. But I also in turn have to be all of those things, because it doesn't make sense to have that expectation for someone else when I can't even do that myself.
Fair.
So I think that's really.
How do you, do you write this stuff down?
Yeah, I mean, I have characteristics of what I want out of my next relationship. My therapist did make me write all that stuff down. So yeah, I do have that, and I'm actively working to be that person.
Yeah. That was hard for me, but that was easy compared to when you meet the person and you like her, but she doesn't check all the boxes and you're like, well, this one's okay. Yeah,
right. Like how important are those really?
I mean, she hits me, but at least, I'm not going to the hospital, or, you start making excuses,
yeah,
right?
You overlook so many red
She only
flags.
drinks wine.
Yeah, she's only drinking wine. I mean, she's only cheated on me twice, and it's been a month, so that's not bad. But
no, it's fine.
I find that the work is definitely all of what you're doing. Plus, when you do meet somebody that you like, not compromising on your values. But it does change. Like on my list, I said I wanted to meet somebody that didn't have kids, or that didn't want kids.
Right.
I didn't mind if they had kids, but I didn't want somebody that wanted kids, because I just didn't want to have kids at that time. And now, after being with this woman, my wife, for 2.5 years, I've changed my mind and I want kids. Mm-hmm. So I think it's fine to hey, this is what I want at the time, and then things change, right?
Yeah. Compromising is fine, but it is about recognizing, because my issue with that is I have this deep desire for everyone to like me. So if there is a person who's not meeting all of my qualifications, I'm willing to overlook that because I want them to like me anyways. It doesn't matter if they're hurting me. I just want to make them happy.
But what happens after you make them happy? Is that the challenge gone? And now what?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's we talked about it on my episode. It's making someone happy until I grow to resent them. And that's toxic. That's not a good trait to have. And so that's what I'm working on right now. But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought.
What you're looking for in a man, and making sure you don't, detract from that.
Yeah. And I'm willing to overlook a lot of traits because I collect people. I still want people around, and I'm willing to overlook things that are non-starters for me because I want whoever that person is around.
Company, companionship.
Yeah. The real challenge is standing true to my values. And so that's where I'm at right now, is learning to stand true to my values.
Are you trying to imagine how you could become a good ender quickly?
What do you mean?
Well, when you go on a date or two with somebody and you're like, this definitely is not the guy.
Yeah.
How can you become a quick ender instead of delaying it to the point where it gets uncomfortable?
I think at this point, this is actually something that I've gotten quite good at. If I'm not comfortable with something, I'm happy to cut it off. And that is definitely that's always been a challenge for me. But I think as of late, that's become something that's easier. And to be honest, I'm not even doing that anymore. I deleted all of my dating apps.
You'll have to teach us how you do that, because I think we're all still working on that one.
Right. Well, it depends on how attached I really get in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because my therapist says that dating is all interviewing.
Right.
So once you get the interviewing out of the way, you can decide whether or not you want to take the next steps with that person and develop something emotionally.
Right.
So you get those red flags out of the way from the beginning. It's an easy cutoff.
Are you finding some solace and enjoyment in solitude now?
I absolutely am. I've been painting more. I even watched TV recently, which is crazy because I never have time for that.
What'd you watch? Anything good?
Manifest. I'm watching the new season of Manifest.
I saw the
it's
first
so
two.
good.
Yeah.
So good.
We just finished White Lotus. That's a heck of a show.
You got to watch season 2.
I'm caught up. Yeah.
Oh, you're caught up.
I'm going to steal Todd's HBO
Wild.
login.
Well, and
It's wild.
and I don't want to have my son be mortified when he listens to this, but unfortunately, I identify with the grandfather, the father, and
then
kid.
the kid. Yeah.
And I'm like, the kids, Bond or Gray. I'm the dad, and then the father, the grandfather. I'm like, it's generational.
Yeah.
And the guy depicts it. He's like, look, you fucked me up. I'm not blaming you, but this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And, the reason I look at every girl, or the reason I do this, because of you,
And then the dad turns to the grandfather. He's like, yeah, this is because of you.
right. Right.
You weren't that sneaky and sly.
Yeah.
Charles and I are over here with blank looks on our faces.
you have to watch it. It's good.
Very good.
But I think that's a good segment, because the thing I would want to touch on is being around family for Thanksgiving, I've gotten to see, now that I've done even more work, I've gotten to see how the stuff is passed down and how just the overall, like, just the way Daniel, don't be mad at me, but whatever, I don't care, is the way that her mom acts. She learned that behavior from her mom. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty eye opening to see. It's like, and then, you know, I can look at it the same way as like my dad. The way that my dad behaves around angry women is the only way that I know how to, right?
Peacemaker.
How can I get you to stop being mad at me?
Diffuse it
even though I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And now I can say, hey, what you just said to me doesn't sit right with me. You know, that you're trying to shame me right now. And I'm not cool with that.
Isn't it amazing to have the awareness? It's almost like you have this secret power.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, huh. And I find it by pulling back and not reacting. Like when my heart rate's going and I'm all jacked up and I'm in it, I can't see it. Yeah. But when I'm calm and like feeling like this Dalai Lama looking at the situation, it's like, oh, I can see it all day long, you know? And it's so cool to be able to see it.
Yeah. I have a hard time in conflict. I've recognized to speak my truth because I will just sit there and I'll listen and I won't say anything because it's like, I'm trying to figure out how to diffuse the situation instead of just and what I did was I took a break. I removed myself so I could kind of figure out what Blake really wanted to say, not in the heat of the moment, just getting her to be not mad at me and come back and say, hey, this is why I'm feeling this way. This is what the problem is. And, you know, this is how I'd like to move forward. You know, where I think, and Richard's a big proponent of it, taking the 5-10 minute break so you can really say what you want to say. Because in the conflict, I do this myself. In the conflict, I don't listen. I'm stuck on the thing that you said 2 minutes ago because I'm ready to rebuttal that with, you know, that what you just, and I've missed the 3 minutes of the stuff after that, right? Because if you're thinking in the conflict, you're not listening.
Yeah. And we were just talking about this before the episode, having to have healthy conflict and what that looks like. And I'm a newbie to this, but boy, it's awesome.
Yeah. Conflict is supposedly healthy, where I've learned in my life that we want to avoid conflict at all costs.
At all costs. I mean, my parents were like calling me off the hook the last few days. Like, have you talked to your son? Have you talked to Grayson? You talked to Graham? I'm like, yeah, I talked to him the other day. And I'm like, guys, you're the grandparents. Like, I talk to your parents like once a year, you know, like, I mean, why do you need to talk to him all the time? Like, he's fine. Let's let go. And it's like, it's good to be able to speak your truth and like not have those guilty feelings. Like, oh, I shouldn't have said it. They're upset now. They're going to be sad. No, you know, you got to say what you believe.
I'll get Grayson to call you right now.
Right. Yeah. That's what I used to say. Like, I'll call him right now. Great. You better call them. You know, it's like, now it's like, no. You know, he'll call you back when he wants to talk to you, you know? So it's like, it's good to do that. Charles, I'm looking over at you. You've been working your butt off.
It's crazy.
You got just a bonanza of stuff going on at Proton. What's going on?
Well, first, I love the topic today. So if the whole goal here is for me to be my authentic self in a world that's never been less authentic, in a world where you've never had to be more careful about what you say, right? Would you agree with that? I mean, I look back, I'll give some examples. I look back, I was watching some Family Guy reruns, Richard Pryor, the Chappelle Show.
Oh,
these things would be,
they went after
they
people.
They wouldn't even make it past the pilot.
Right.
I mean, have you know Family Guy intimately well, right? I mean, intimately, you're friends with those guys. None of that would make it on the air today. None of it. And it's
going back 20 years, you know.
Yeah. And it's absolute, cinematic genius, right? That everything about that. Richard Pryor. I mean, I look at the guys that are hammered right now. Imagine trying to be a comedian these days.
Eddie Murphy.
Forget it with Eddie Murphy. I mean, these comedians these days, they can't even, and joke is equal opportunity, finding pleasure in just the world today. And I err on the side. I'm more of a enjoy the world type of guy. I try to find humor in everything. And I have to be careful about what I say these days. I have to be careful what I say in front of my employees. I have to be careful what I say out in public. And then on top of that, you had mentioned socially, right? And I think our world is dictated and dominated today by social media. How many people do we know or have we seen that look nothing like what they portray?
It's unbelievable.
It's called airbrushing.
It's insane.
It's unbelievable.
Excuse me, who are you? Oh, that can't be you.
No
What?
wrinkles.
That fucking can't
Wait,
be you.
you're 65 and you have no wrinkles? Yeah.
And it's a pandemic, right? And I think so let's like break that down, because I see myself doing that, editing videos, right? Because I'm doing a lot of promoting and posting for the business, and myself has now become the identity of that. And I see myself editing different things to make them appear a certain way, right? So it's really I'm trying to get, and this is what I see across the board. We're trying to get what we feel we are in the inside exposed to everyone on the outside, and it's not authentic. It is not. Social media, by and large, is not authentic, right? And we're passing this down to our children, right? And it's all about, let me show you what I want you to see, but that's not who we are. That's not what I am. That's not who any of us are. I'm off, Soraya, I'm off the dating apps as well. That was short-lived because it is not as described. It's not at all. And we're seeing the absolute best pictorially speaking and not really seeing authentic. It's almost like whoever sends me the shit that's most like them wins, right? And that's the true authentic self. So good topic today, Todd.
Yeah. I, when you were just talking about that, my one of my business partners met his wife through eHarmony. And I remember when I got single, I started looking up eHarmony, and it's like, holy cow. It's like 3 hours of application to even get on the site. I'm like, screw this. I can't pay attention for 3 minutes.
Let me just
3
throw some
hours.
airbrush
Soraya, we fill this out.
Let me know what you put down.
Yeah. I'm like, no way. But they get into the nitty gritty of like, your beliefs and your hobbies and I mean, all kinds of stuff. And I think they do a better job of matching instead of like a paragraph and some pictures. Right.
I would love to throw all the influencers, and I am doing air quotations. I would love to throw all the influencers in a room with no filter. And I would also like to sit down with them and ask them some real life questions. And I don't know why these people are influencing anyone, to be honest with you.
And I think that the social media, it's like, let's build these communities, right? But I think from just talking to people, I think people, and our guest last week, are so lonely. Right. And the social media actually takes us further apart than brings us together. And there's so many people that it really just destroys, because you're comparing your insides to everyone's outsides.
Yeah.
You're lonely and despair behind the screen, living behind the screen. And I look at my kids, their friends. I mean, so many people are living behind the screen. They're on Snapchat hours a day. They're on Instagram. They're on YouTube. It's like they're not living life. They're attached to their phone. Oh my God, I got a notification. Holy shit. Yeah. And all the people that I admire and look up to, they all do they screen detox.
Yeah.
And some of them, like Brad Feld, who's a well-known VC that I know in Colorado, he does a 2-week one every year.
Yeah.
My buddy Howard Lindzen does a couple weeks every year. And they get rid of all their screens for a couple weeks. And that, again, brings me back to how can I find my true self?
Yeah.
Do I need to be checking Facebook, my stocks, YouTube, Instagram? Do I need to be the news? Do I need to be checking this every 5 minutes? It's a distraction from me being intimate with other people. That's what it is. And I see it all the time. People are like looking at us like, oh, hold on, I'll be with you in a minute. Or they get a phone call. Oh, I got to take this. They don't need to take it.
Yeah, no.
And all it is creating an impediment in between a relationship that is starting to maybe build some intimacy and some realness to it and creating a distraction. And that's because it's scary. People, especially this generation, they don't know how to be intimate. I mean, there was no such thing as a cell phone when I was in high school.
You had to go
college.
play.
You had to go to make a phone call. You got to go to Circle K and use a payphone.
To interact with someone, you had to touch them.
There was no internet. I mean, you were when you talked to someone, you were talking to someone.
That's right.
There's no distraction. And I think this generation, and also I think the physiology of our chemistry, of our brain chemistry is changing based on that.
It is.
And that's why we can do 5-6 things at once. I mean, Soraya could be on Snapchat writing me 3 letters and booking reservations at the same time. It's like, we have changed our brain chemistry on this, and I don't think it's for the good.
It impacts relationships.
Yeah,
right?
it affects relationships. So I have another story. I was at a 12-step meeting today, and my wife shared and started bawling hysterically, and started talking about how she has this desire to drink, and it's a really strong desire. She's been sober 5 years, and it really kind of threw me off. I'm like, wow. She's like, yeah, I've been really thinking about it. I've been sort of planning it, and I'm just super uncomfortable. And I realize by her sharing that and being vulnerable, it's like, it makes me closer to her. And at first I wanted to save her, like, oh, I got to do something. I got to get in action, put on my super cape. And I realized, no, I don't need to do anything. I just need to tell her I love her and I'm here for you. And I will, let me know if you need anything from me. But this is like her journey that she needs to participate in and her experience. And it's cool to see that, because I know in the past, if my wife or partner said they are broken and need some help and they're in pain, I fix it. Just like you were talking about with your dad, and I would fix it. And now I can sit back, whether it's my wife, my kids, my friends, I can sit back and just tell people I love them. I'm here for you. Maybe send them a quote here and there to help them, but they need to walk through the journey.
Yeah.
And, it's scary, because she asked me the other day, she goes, what would happen if I drank? And I was wondering why she asked me that. I'm like, I'd fucking leave you in a heartbeat, I mean, I was sort of kidding, but, probably not, because I don't think it would take long for her to be drinking before I'd be like, I can't do this anymore. But like, for her to even ask those questions, like, what would you do if I started drinking? I'm like, well, I married a sober girl that I only know you sober. I know for me, if I started drinking, I know for a fact what kind of person returns. Mm-hmm. And I know I wouldn't want my worst enemy to be hanging out with that person, because that person's mean. That person is slighted and revengeful. I mean, that person is not someone you want to hang out with. So I don't know about you guys, if you ever, because we were talking today about, if you're sober, drink time will come for you. No matter how much work you do, it will show up eventually. Yep. And I remember 11 years sober. I'm living in California in Laguna Beach, and drink time came in a big way. And I was so out of my mind. I mean, I was like 160 pounds. I couldn't even eat. And I went 3 nights without sleeping, literally 3 straight nights. I was starting to hallucinate, and I was in so much fear and so much panic. And I was thinking about drinking in a big way. And I had to go through that experience though, because it brought me back to like finding my higher power, finding what was important to me, finding myself, most importantly. That was a health anxiety situation where I thought I had like cancer and all this stuff wrong with my body. And I let a little pebble of fear turn into a boulder where it was impossible to break, So I think playing the tape of the fear and not doing anything about it, it will grow to where it's like a python on your back and you can't get it off. So I think it's the lesson I learned this morning is share your plan, share your experience.
You take the power away.
Take a power away.
Yeah.
Holy shit, I might get divorced. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. But just share it. Yeah. Who cares what's going to happen? Just share it, tell people, and they'll love you. Mm-hmm. Just like when I got sober, I couldn't love myself. They loved me until I figured out how to love myself. And I remember, Charles, when you came in, and it's like, you were super uncomfortable. You were like bright red. You were like fidgety. You were like moving around, and people just loved you. And then you got comfortable in your own skin eventually.
It was wild. It was a wild deal. You walk in not loving yourself. You have 30 guys right there ready to. That's the beautiful thing about these group recovery, right? I don't care which one it is. I don't care what the first letter before the A is. It's all the same. And then once we hear that common sharing, that common experience, I forget who it was, but they were laughing, right? You see that. I don't care which A it is as well. We find humor in the things that are ailing us in this moment. So there's a lot of strength in that as well. But yeah.
And then we don't take ourselves so seriously. Once we hear people laughing, we're like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's not that serious.
I love the saying, learn to laugh at yourself or you'll miss the biggest joke of your life. I love that.
Right.
I mean, because the things that I have right now that I think are problems, even I look back at the things that were the worst, going through a divorce, right? These things that were just awful at the time, and I couldn't see my way out of it. I look back and they were we laugh about them now today.
Right.
Like, do you remember that? Do you remember this? I wasn't in a great spirit when I walked into Western Pizza that day.
No.
We laugh at that now.
Right.
We find humor in those because we've grown and we've recovered from them, and then we've learned. But yeah, I identify with that, Todd, a lot. There has to be some there's some humor in recovery. There's some joy that comes in recovery. I see it all the time.
Yeah. Blake, what do you think about finding yourself in the recovery journey and sobriety?
Yeah, I think it's just the thing is with the unknown comes unlimited possibility. And I remember someone telling me I was with somebody and we're driving and I'm going to detox, and I thought my whole world was over. Right. And now I can look back at that and I'm still friends with these same guys and we can laugh. Like, do you remember when you were all messed up on speakerphone in the car and like, saying that the world's over? And I think it's all perspective, right? And Jordan Peterson talks a lot about perspective. And I think, at least for my recovery journey, the drink does come, but at least now I have tools, and it's a blessing that we're not all sick on the same day, right? Like, you might be sick one day, but chances are we're not all going to be sick the same day. So it takes a village, and
Todd, you hit on.
Yeah. And it's like we have, like, disclosing it to me is 50% of the battle. And then from there, God just brings the help. Like it comes through
people
the podcast, the people. It just comes, it just comes. Like, I've been a little self-conscious about having kids at my age, 55, and I'm having breakfast this morning at my restaurant, Morning Squeeze. Great pancakes. And,
great French toast.
Yeah, little plug there. And our server, who I've known for a while, she's like, "Oh, you want to have kids at your age?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, my second set of kids." And she goes, "Oh, my dad is," what did she say? "My dad's 75, which is the age I'll be when my kids were 20, my new kids." So it's like, it's just like, the universe brought something to me where I was self-conscious about it. Like, I can't be an old dad. I can't do this, and it's like, she's like, I have an amazing relationship with my dad. The fact that he wasn't working 24/7 when I was growing up was like such a blessing.
Yeah.
And it was just like one of those things where,
or it's that couple you met in Laguna when you were thinking about it, starting that journey, the guy who's wicked smart scientist, he's older, right. And you're like, wow, yeah.
They have 5 kids.
Five kids.
Yeah. The astrophysicist, Elon Musk guy. Yeah.
Todd, you hit on something that was pretty powerful, right? That Alex came to you and shared that with you, right? So dishonesty is always the barrier between two people truly getting close. And for her to be open and honest and be able to be vulnerable and share that with you, huge.
Right.
And like you said, it's not, you're having these thoughts, what the fuck's wrong with you? It's, hey, come closer to me, right? Like, you felt closer to her with that vulnerability, and that is attractive. That's good stuff. And then, yes, of course, for all of us, right? Drink time does come. It comes in the form of getting the job. It comes in the form of losing the job. It comes in the form of getting married and getting divorced, having the kid, losing the kid, right? So it always comes. But to your point, if we have just that one person, and for you, it's her, or for her, it's you, that we can share that with. Yeah, I think that's even more than half the battle.
Yeah, I was looking at her today when she was sharing that. I'm like, boy, it's amazing how close I feel to her. Because I was taught as a kid, and we've talked about this on this podcast, that, don't share, don't talk, and don't feel.
Yeah, right.
Don't do those things. Let's make it all
don't tell
look
the
good.
Truth. Right?
Don't tell the truth. And Alex and I have built our relationship foundationally on those 3 things: on sharing, talking, and feeling, and without rescuing, but like sharing what's going on. And it's like amazing how we can just show up for each other and celebrate the good times, celebrate the hard times, but we're experiencing emotion, and we're experiencing what I consider true intimacy. Where before it's like, I mean, you watch White Lotus, like what the hell is the grandfather and the father and the son talking about? They don't talk about anything.
Yeah.
The weather and what are we gonna have for lunch? And, it's like, I want real conversations.
Yeah.
Real conversations. Like, kids, tell me about your fears. Tell me about your worries. Charles, what's going on? Like, why aren't you dating? Like, let's talk about real shit that matters, instead of like just keeping it surface, which is really social media.
That's right.
social media is like very surface.
And dishonest.
And sometimes you see the opposite of that, where it's like the person crying on social media and they're like, you know, some celebrity or someone who's not a celebrity. And they're just like, but it's the opposite, right? They're just trying to get attention,
Right.
you know? And it's like, so you see both sides of it. What do you think about that stuff?
So for me, I'm not sober, but over the last year, you know, I've spent most of my time around mostly sober people. And I think it's kind of cool. Like you said earlier, you know, there's this piece in your brain that tells you to fix Alex's problem. But you have to step back from that. And I think that what's really, because I've always been a fixer, and that's who I've been up until this point. So I think that the journey in learning to not fix and to just support has been really cool. And so like when I was going through my breakup, I had an entire village of your friends around me that really just wanted to support me. They didn't provide me with any answers or solutions because that's not what I was looking for. I was just looking for hey, it's going to be okay. I'm here if you need anything. And I don't know. I think that that's really cool. And that's also something that I'm learning about myself too, is just learning to support and not fix.
Sometimes it's a hug.
Yeah.
I remember when I had 11 years ago or 12 years ago, when I was literally signed up for a psych ward, it's like, I just sat in my buddy Morris's office all day long while he worked. And just by him being 4 feet away from me, I felt better.
Good guy to sit by.
Yeah. And I think I did 4 days straight. He was working, doing his thing, and I just sat there. And I just knowing that he was there made me a little bit less wanting to kill myself at that very moment, you know, just knowing that he was right there. Mm-hmm. And until I eventually put myself back together again. But it's like you said, it's like they're giving you unconditional love. And there's like, they don't want anything out of it. It's just like, they're good people that have a lot of love to give.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, like what real relationships are. I thought relationships were always about what you can get out of it. Yeah. What's this guy going to give me? What's this girl going to give me? What can I get out of it? What's the deal? You know, What's the deal?
Yeah. This is not love that I've ever experienced before. So like, I'm really glad to be here. But like, it was so surreal for me to sit down with your friends. And these are all just people who don't want anything from me. They don't need anything from me. I have nothing that I can offer them, but they are so ready to help me emotionally and be there for me emotionally with absolutely nothing in return. And I have never experienced that kind of love in my life. And it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah,
I've got to admit.
We're very blessed that we're very, very blessed to have a group of people around us who, have got out of the societal trend of like trying to look good and always trying to get more. And, it's like, I think people doing this spiritual journey are pulled back and are like, no, I think the most important thing is supporting our fellow man and just being in love, just being love and not trying to get more money, more jobs, more cars, more things. Because I look back at the people I used to hang out with 25, 30 years ago, and it was truly who could have more stuff, who could have more cars, who could have more girls, who could have, the bigger company, blah, 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 and who could party harder. And it's like, the commonality of my friends back then and compared to the commonality that we have now, It's like, I don't want to hang out with those people at all. I see them. I'm friendly. I say hi. We get a chuckle here and there, maybe reminiscing about an old time, but it's like, I don't want to hang out with them. Like, I don't want to go sit through a 2-hour dinner with them. That would be painful. I mean, Charles, a lot of these same cats. And it's like, I don't want to hang out with these people.
And I'm glad that you clarified earlier that they were sitting 5 rows behind you first.
Yeah. We definitely, I caught that too. Yeah, because there's no rows in front of you. Yeah. You get it.
I don't even want to go 5 rows back to say hi to them. So thanks for clarifying that. But Todd, you and I experienced this recently. One of the guys that both you and I 25 years ago would have wanted to be just like is still sitting alone at the bar 25 years later doing the same stuff. And we don't want any part of that. Right. So it's amazing. Yes. I'll take the guys that are in your circle, which coincidentally are the same that as mine. I'll take them all day long over the people that I used to idolize. And And now I idolize them in a much different way. And it's showing up for Sarai. It's showing up. It's asking how you're doing and actually meaning it.
Yeah. So the guy we had on last week on the podcast, I wasn't here. I was at an appointment with my wife. So that guy turned pro at 18, tennis. And I remember how much envy and jealousy I had towards this guy for years. And I used to follow him because back then you could find the scores in the paper.
Yeah.
The USA Today and the New York Times
I
and
miss
stuff.
those days.
You used to be able to find the scores from all the pro tournaments. So I would follow him, literally religiously follow him through the scores. Again, before the internet. And it's like, I'd be like, oh God, he beat Sampras or he lost in the semis and I would follow him and I'm just like, God, that could have been me. I should have worked harder. I should have been on the court a little bit longer. I should have hired that coach. Why didn't I use those rackets instead of my rackets? And I just, why'd I screw off so much? I could have been that guy. So much envy and jealousy. But you know what? At the end of the day, like, I'm kind of glad that I'm me and not him, and I love Mark, but like, I'm so glad that I don't have, that I did my journey exactly the way it happened, because I know a lot of guys that became those famous musicians, tennis players, athletes, doesn't matter. And when they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, it's sort of a lonely existence. The fans are gone. The prize is gone. And it's like, now you got to have life skills on how to build intimacy, how to have real relationships.
It's a hard path to go. Professional athletes. So what age did that occur?
18.
Yeah. So most of these players are going in 18 years old. It's all they know. That's a hard existence, because when that's gone, then it is hard, right? I mean, we see it with people burning out of baseball, burning out of football, right? It's like, what do I do now? What do I do now? And the glory and the fame is gone. I'm in that world. You guys have plenty of friends that have been in that world. It's not easy to recover.
Well, and the pinnacle, like look at Tiger Woods, the pinnacle, right? Pinnacle.
Most dominant athlete ever.
And look where he turns. Look where he turns in his, he talks openly about his sex addiction and trying to get help for it. But like, even guys like that, there's such an emptiness. And so it's so hollow
across the
that
board.
they need to find something else to fill that hole.
Well, that's what propelled him to be the greatest ever.
Right.
Right.
So it's
golf.
like, it's a trade-off.
Well, I'm saying at their choosing, whether it's tennis or golf. I mean, he had this deep, empty hole that he was seeking his dad's approval. And he went to the ends of the earth to get that approval, and he never got it.
Right. But he also saw his dad be a role model for him and how to be intimate with women. And that's what he turned into.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's like, again, the White Lotus story, but it's amazing how unless you do the deep spiritual, emotional work, I think you'll always be trying to fill that hole.
For sure.
Always be trying to fill that hole. And the hole can be filled with a lot of different things, because our society, and especially in a capitalistic society like we live in the US, there's always going to be something to fill that hole.
For sure.
There's a lot of shit on social media, and they just legalized gambling in pretty much every state in the country right now. And it's like, okay, there's another one at your fingertips. I mean, with the internet, porn's everywhere. You can meet a girl anytime you want. So it's like, they've kind of fed you single thing you need to fill that hole without spirituality and without intimacy, right? True intimacy.
At our fingertips.
Yeah.
It's so easy to access. It's wild.
All right. What else we got before we wrap up? I also wrote down this thing. The first thing I wrote down today, because we didn't know what we were going to talk about, was my friend Bob N. Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, he told me this like 24 years ago, and it just stuck with me because I thought it was just one of those pearls that I'll never forget. He said, Todd, and he was talking about business in this sense. He goes, Todd, watch what they do, not what they say. People can pitch a good game with their words and say some great stuff, but watch what they do. And I've heard some great teachers in my life that always talked a great game. And I'm like, oh man, I look up to this person, like the guy we were just talking about. But then you watch what they do and it's like, ooh, that's not what his words don't match his actions, And I want to be that guy that where no matter what I'm doing or no matter what I'm saying, I don't care who finds out. my kids, my wife, my business partners, my parents, anybody, because it will align with my values. And not every time, but like 95% of the time I want it to align. I'm going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
But I want it to align most of the time. So where I'm not like, oh, don't have my kids see that. Don't have my parents see that. Don't have Alex see that. It's like, no, I want to be that person 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm striving for, to be consistent, open, honest, and just to have, I don't have any secrets. And that's a great thing. Like I can give Alex my phone and go, hey, go at it. There's nothing here.
That's so free. That's so free.
Social media, secret text. I have some friends that have like they have an app with a calculator on it, but it's not a calculator.
Right.
They're like secret pictures. And I remember when I was single for a brief moment, some of my friends were like, yeah, you got to download this app. You can put all the nudes in there and all the. So I started doing it. I'm like, fuck. And then I couldn't figure out where it was. And I'm like, forget this. I'm
Can't
just
remember the password.
Yeah, I'm a bad liar and deceiver these days. Which I think is a good thing.
That's a good thing.
All right, Sarai, anything else before we wrap up?
I don't know. How was your Thanksgiving? What are you thankful for?
I'm thankful that you were there.
I'm also thankful I was there. I had a great time with your family.
That was fun.
It was a great time.
Julie, my ex-wife, led the games, the festivities.
It was a good game. I've never done Family Feud before, but I had a great time.
It got competitive.
Yeah, it really did.
It was a lot of
Todd and competitive. What?
Oh yeah, no, and Todd's just yelling random stuff out. It's great.
Yeah, there's one of our friends' kid who's how old is Adina? Like 6.
Oh God. Yeah, something like that.
6 or 7. She's like trying to give the answers to people, and I'm like, you can't shut up. You can't say anything. Yelling at this little 6-year-old because we were losing. But yeah, we played Family Feud. And
we lost against your dad. Can we talk about that for a second?
He grew up on that show.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun to play games at family functions like that because it takes some of the heat off of making conversations and politics or money or control. So I like some of those games like that. And so we'll have to continue to do that. But all right, guys. Well, hope you guys have a great week. And please be nice to my friend today. And we'll see you next week on the laundry list.